what is it about BMX that drew you in as a child?
And I gotta tell you, it's the same story I've heard from every person I've asked the same question of. And that was just our freedom back then. And me being a Gen Xer growing up in the 80s, riding the BMX bike during that time was the perfect timing. Like everything fell into place. All of your friends had BMX bikes. And all of us would ride like a pack of outlaw motorcycle gang kids on bicycles through the neighborhood. And you're riding through people's front yards. You're jumping over trash cans. You're just out of control, but it's the funnest of times. And BMX tracks were in almost every field, and it's just so rideable back then. There weren't rules and regulations against any of that stuff, and schools didn't have fences around them. And you'd go through there and launch off stairs, or you'd find scraps of wood and make a ramp. Like you were just, the imagination had no ends at that point. And it was the sense of freedom and the ability to push yourself and your limits. And it was cool to have scabs, and it was cool to have a beat up rider bike that was cooler and might have had anodized parts and your friends didn't, and you'd swap parts back and forth. I mean, it just became almost a full-time lifestyle in the summers of the 80s, riding bikes. And sometimes there'd be events and stuff, but honestly, I maybe went to one or two of those. It was just my core group of friends and I riding, making our own jumps. And I go back and visit those places today, and you can still see remnants of the jumps we built. And they're beaten down from 40 years of weathering, but they're still there.
BMX Breakthrough is bridging the gap from old school to new school, from tracks to manufacturers, from new riders to their local tracks, and it doesn't stop at racing, but the mission is to connect people with bikes. Join me, Jay Oaks, as I interview key people in the sport and in the industry that are involved in their local circles, in their communities, at their local tracks, and aiming to make a difference on a local level. You'll hear stories, marketing tips, failures, successes, and a way to make a difference in your local BMX community. Let's dive in as we kick off this next episode. Let's dive in and talk about BMX. Sean, good to meet you. Good to, be having this conversation. But, I would love to know if you would introduce yourself, and then I think I want to start out with, how did you get into BMX? Where did that begin for you?
Absolutely. So my name is Sean Nichols. I own Rad BMX Builds. I'm 52 years old, and I started racing probably in the 5th grade in California. And I started off like most kids my age back then on a Schwinn Stingray, and then it escalated into actual BMX bikes when that started to become a thing. And I only raced back then for about 2 years, and then just rode recreationally like all other kids did. But in Southern California, I mean, we had a plethora of places to ride. And so I would go to the Pipeline in Upland, California and see Eddie Fiola. I was a member of the Pipeline, so I rode there too, but not anywhere on that level. But I was out there getting road rash like everybody else, and having a blast. And we would ride from like our house 22 miles to the beach down the Santa Ana River Trail, and just jumping everything between here and there, and fake a flat tire so mom would come get you and drive you back home, so we wouldn't have to drive or ride 44 miles round trip. So yeah, that's kind of how I grew up. And then at 18, I got back into racing around 16, 17, had a PK Ripper like the one I built that's up here behind me. I don't know if you can see it in the photo. No, you can't see it, but it's on the social media pages. And I broke that frame, and finding someone back then to weld an aluminum frame decently, it was pretty hard to do. So the bike to me at that point was just kind of wrecked. And at 18, I joined the military and sold that bike, not really knowing what it was or what it would be, because it had like bullseye hubs, 3-piece cranks, like all the parts. I think I sold that bike for $100 because it was cracked and welded. And now it kills me that I did that. I'm the guy that made the dumb decision, but I needed money. I was going to the military. I didn't have any money. And so I did that. And man, I would say somewhere around 92, I bought a neon yellow GT Mach 1. And I had it, and I just didn't get back into it like I thought I would. And ended up selling it for almost nothing to my neighbor so his kid can have it. And that was kind of getting back into it. Then I went right back out of it. And then right before I retired from the military, this is probably 2016, I found a Haro Group 1, and it's half buried in the dirt, just the frame and forks. And I said, I'm going to bring this sucker back. So I pulled it out of the dirt, figured out how to clean chrome, built a bike. I thought that was kind of fun, but this is not the kind of bike. It was more of a mid-school, and it had cantilever brakes, which I've never worked on at that point, which I still hate to this day. And so I hated the bike and got rid of it. And so I said, I'm going to build myself another bike and build my wife a bike. And this is kind of how it all started to take off. Is I found a 91 GT Performer frame and fork set on eBay for $60 back then. Now they're $1,000. So I thought that's a pretty decent deal. I'll do a build. And the build maybe cost me, I don't know, $500 to build that bike out. And I thought, that was a lot of fun. And I'm going to build my wife one. So I built her a Dyno Detour, a chrome one, and went crazy on that. Now I got two really rad bikes. And I was posting them on my private Instagram back then. And some random guy's like, hey, will you sell me those bikes? I was like, no, man, it's just my bike and my wife's bike. And my page back then was like Sean's whatever. Like, it wasn't Rad BMX Builds. That didn't exist. And he just kept hounding me over and over and over. And he's like, I'll give you cash, blah, blah, blah. And he raised his price, said, finally, this is what I'll do. I'll pay you cash, this much for this bike, this much for this bike. And I thought, that's way more than I put into him. I said, deal, I'll deliver him. He was in California and I was in Arizona at the time. I put him on my car and I drove to California and I met him and I said, who are you? Like, what do you do for a living? Why do you want these so bad? And he owns a clothing company on Rodeo Drive and wants them as display pieces. Clearly, probably had no problem paying that amount of money. So time goes by and I start, of course, I'm following his page at this point and I'm seeing them, models sitting on these bikes, just random weird people who probably never BMX in their lives using it as a prop. And I thought, that's kind of cool. At least they're getting some screen time too. And then I stopped following the page because it's just all clothing stuff. Years go by and I see that bike pop up again on the Essentials clothing brand page. And I was like, that's a huge brand, millions of followers. So I reached out, of course, no reply because I was going to try to buy the bike back at that point. And it's gone. But that taught me that there's a demand out there. And so I changed the name of the page so it wasn't my name. And it went through a bunch of different names. So it was Rad, this, BMX, whatever, and I just couldn't land on what I wanted it to be. And I was building and flipping bikes. And when I retired, we bought a big 40-foot diesel pusher motorhomer just traveling all over the US. So I was buying stuff on eBay left and right, sending it to my storage unit. My mom was just piling it up in there for me. And after some time, we went to the storage unit and opened the door, and it was a 5-foot tall pile by 10-foot in diameter of bike parts. And my wife's like, what is that? And so the cat's out of the bag. I was like, I'm building, 4 bikes with all of that. She goes, you're able to catalog all that in your head, every part you needed to build 4 bikes. It's like, build the 4 bikes. Let me see what you got going on there. And I did. I built 4 really cool bikes. And she's like, what I see here is a business. One, stop spending our personal money on all this stuff because I don't even want to know how much that costs. So I was like, I'm not telling you. And so I built all these bikes and I sold all the bikes, very profitable, no problem. It was getting around the COVID time. People are buying bikes like crazy. So they're real easy to build and flip. And then every now and then I'd build one where I was like, I really like that. And I'd hang on to it, which is terrible for business, but it's good for content. And then I just started focusing on social media. And so the Instagram page just blew up one day. I went on a vacation to Mexico, and then I was just getting all these notifications and text messages. I was trying to relax by the pool, have a nice special drink, but my phone is going insane, and which I probably shouldn't even have brought my phone down there. I was like, what is happening? And I had a reel just go completely viral and millions of views on it. And so the follower count went through the roof, like probably 20,000 followers in a week. And it just blew up my account. And I thought, okay, it's pretty serious at this point. Let's just make it a full-time thing. And I thought I have a pretty good following on Instagram. Let's leverage that and do YouTube. A friend of mine does YouTube. He's very successful at it. I had a conversation with him and he said, you already have a head start. You have a following on another platform. Just get them to go over there, which proves to be a lot more difficult than you'd think because I think I'm just about to hit 132,000 on Instagram, and I barely have over 10,000 on YouTube. If I can get them to go over there, it would be great. I do YouTube full time, but I just can't. It's like leading a horse to water, and it is what it is. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind of the evolution of how it happened, I guess.
man, that's really cool. That's a
It's
fun
a wild
story.
story.
It
Yeah.
is. Yeah. I mean, and it's cool how it goes from just, the collecting side and the excitement. I mean, I was talking to a couple of guys recently about, the dynamic of it wasn't really a collector's game for a long time. It was just people that were in the sport and had stuff laying around, and then all of a sudden started becoming very valuable, more and more. And so what was it about BMX that got you in? Like, obviously you reference just riding around the neighborhood with kids and
Yeah.
and riding your bike and stuff, but what is it about BMX that drew you in as a child?
And I gotta tell you, it's the same story I've heard from every person I've asked the same question of. And that was just our freedom back then. And me being a Gen Xer growing up in the 80s, ride the BMX bike during that time was the perfect timing. Like everything fell into place. All of your friends had BMX bikes. And all of us would ride like a pack of outlaw motorcycle gang kids on bicycles through the neighborhood. And you're riding through people's front yards. You're jumping over trash cans. You're just out of control, but it's the funnest of times. And BMX tracks were in almost every field, and it's just so rideable back then. There weren't rules and regulations against any of that stuff, and schools didn't have fences around them. And you'd go through there and launch off stairs, or you'd find scraps of wood and make a ramp. Like you were just, the imagination had no ends at that point. And it was the sense of freedom and the ability to push yourself and your limits. And it was cool to have scabs, and it was cool to have a beat up rider bike that was cooler and might have had anodized parts and your friends didn't, and you'd swap parts back and forth. I mean, it just became almost a full-time lifestyle in the summers of the 80s, riding bikes. And sometimes there'd be events and stuff, but honestly, I maybe went to one or two of those. It was just my core group of friends and I riding, making our own jumps. And I go back and visit those places today, and you can still see remnants of the jumps we built. And they're beaten down from 40 years of weathering, but they're still there. And I thought, God, that's crazy. Like just riding to my friend's house, I would hit the jump we made, and that crack in the sidewalk that's 3 inches tall, I'd hit it and do like a cool little bunny hopper kick out on it, and that hedge I used to launch, now it's 8 feet tall, but back then it was 1.5 feet, but it felt like 5. And it's just such good memories that I think it was inexpensive after you bought the bike. It didn't cost you anything to ride it. So once you got that bike for Christmas or your birthday, or you used your own hard-earned money to get it, you then had all those things unlocked at your disposal to just go out and have a rad day. You didn't have to have money in your pocket to do it.
I love that. And that's exactly what it is it's just, it unlocks the opportunity. And the way that you phrase that is just, I mean, kind of surreal in that way of, it's something that's so simple. Like a bicycle has been used for generations and generations and generations. But then there was this one point in time when the bicycle moved from being more than transportation, and it revolutionized the bicycle industry, and it revolutionized the world to some extent. But it provided, and like you said, everybody that's asked that question, they say freedom. That's what my bike was.
Yeah.
And there's nothing quite like the freedom that is experienced through a bicycle as a kid.
You also have the ability to be an individual and be creative, right? Like you would buy a bike, you'd go to the bike shop and you'd go to the glass counter and you'd say, I want those red cranks. I want those silver pedals. And then you'd individualize that bike. You used your paper route money. You used your car wash money, your lawn mowing money, money you found in the couch to go buy bike parts, to ride to the arcade, to put quarters in and play video games. That was your summer. You lived for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I had a glimpse of that. I think my dad allowed me to live kind of a similar childhood. I had a friend that lived a quarter mile, maybe a half mile away from my house. And so every single day after school is that we would jump on our bikes and we'd ride to the skate park, we'd ride to the bike shop, we'd ride to Krispy Kreme, we'd go and we'd explore the town on our bikes. And we didn't think anything of it. Looking back now, is it's really cool, the opportunity that we had, because a lot of kids haven't had that same freedom and that same childhood experience since the 80s, really. And maybe
Right.
mid 90s, but like, I mean, when I had that opportunity, I don't think there weren't other kids at school that were doing something similar. But yeah, it creates so much fun, so many memories that still come from that. That, I mean, you've even talking about the bikes that you've built and being able to or the bikes that you had and the bikes that you've built that are reminiscent of what you had. And anyway, it just creates some really cool
Yeah,
opportunities.
and that's really what motivates me today is I'm still living those memories the best that I can, because that was the best times, right? You didn't have bills or stress or responsibilities back then. And I've gotten to the point now, I've built probably over 300 bikes at this point, and I'm building bikes now that are core memories. Like my friend XYZ, whatever his name, rode this type of bike. I go on the hunt and I find that bike and I recreate that bike how I envisioned it being. But like the Torker up here behind me, that's a bike that a friend of mine had in high school. But I built it the way I would want it. I know he had a Torker, I got a Torker, but then I built it the way I want it. A friend of mine had a CW, built a CW. A friend of mine had a Redline, built a Redline, Mongoose, so on and so forth. I built just about every single one of my childhood friends' bikes. And if I haven't, it's because I don't even remember that bike. But I'm sitting on, I don't know, somewhere around 16 bikes in here right now that are almost all part of the collection. And it's weird that you have a collection like that when I'm actually a business that builds and sells bikes and does content. But I've gotten some of these bikes that are just so rare that it's hard for me to let go of them. It'd be very profitable to let go of them, but I will never see them again if I do. Like this Cook Brothers here behind me, that's a 1980 Cook Brothers bike in pristine condition. And I've been doing this a long time. I've been in business for 8 years doing this. Never seen one in that condition. So chances are I probably never will again. If they're out there, they're in someone's collection at this point. Because like you alluded to earlier, people now are collecting. And people don't have a social media footprint like I do, where they're not showing off every bike they have. So they're just hiding them and enjoying them, which is fine. But we don't get to see them anymore. They're not out there in the bicycle rack and riding to school, and you won't see them out in front of the arcades. They're in someone's man cave, hanging on a wall for them to enjoy, which is great because those are my clients as well. Those are my customers, and I'm all for it, but you're just not going to see one again if you sell it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I can't see in detail your Cook Brothers, but I know that one of the only ones that I've seen in person is Talon Redmond's, Mike Redmond's son. And it was Mike's, and they put it together for Frogtown last year so that Talon could race it. And such a beautiful bike. Absolutely gorgeous. And but finding one in immaculate condition like that is so rare.
So rare. It's a rare bike to begin with. They were built in Santa Ana, California, which was quite close to where I live. So you saw a few. They didn't shove them out across the world like a lot of big bike brands do. So they weren't really popular like back east. A lot of people haven't even heard of that brand, but it was one of the icons, and it just didn't have large production numbers, and they weren't cheap either. So unless your parents are going to shell out some money, you probably didn't have one. I didn't have one. I had a Redline I got used. It got stolen. My parents gave me a Huffy. So like my parents aren't buying me a Cook Brothers racing bike. So yeah, I would see a couple. That was it. And then it's always been a grail bike for me to find and build. And I came across one just recently. This one here. It was a frame and fork set in Austin during a show I went to, and I traded a brand new GT 26-inch build that I just completed, the entire bike, just for the frame and forks that are on that bike behind me, because I
Wow.
wanted it that bad. I was like, I'm probably taking a financial loss here, but these opportunities don't come often, and it'll bring me, happiness, and it'll bring me content, and it's cooler to look at than a brand new redone 26-inch GT,
That's
in my
fair.
opinion.
I
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so then it was about a year ago, if I remember correctly. Maybe it wasn't quite that long. Anyway, you got rid of your entire collection.
Almost. That's a little
Okay.
clickbaity.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you got rid of a significant number of these bikes, and it was to buy
Yeah.
something else, wasn't it?
Kind of, sort of. So
Okay.
we bounced around a little bit in the last few years. I was living in Newport Beach, California for quite a while. Business and content was great. We had a family situation where a family member needed some assistance. So we moved to Arizona and we signed a 1 year lease, knowing we're just going to be there for a year. Everything was fine after a couple months, but then I was stuck in Arizona for the rest of that time. And I amassed quite the collection of bikes while I was there. There's not a lot of places to go for content. It's 1,000 degrees outside. I didn't have air conditioning in the shop. Like, it was tragic. So content began to suffer a bit. And when the time came to finally move away from there, I was like, I'm sitting on a lot of bikes. I don't want to move them all, because that means I'm not going to throw them all in a U-Haul. I'm going to box them all up. And packing and boxing that many bikes just seemed, I'm a one-man show. It seemed terrible, to be honest with you. And it would take me so much time and effort to do that. So I might as well make money in doing that. And I put them all on the website and boxed and shipped them and it's easier to move money than bikes. So we moved to Texas and now I had a pretty good amount of money. And I thought, now I'm going to buy some bikes that I've always wanted that I probably didn't want to spend the money on before. And I bought some higher end bikes by selling a bunch of lower end. They're not lower end. There were some PK Rippers. There were some good bikes in there, but I have the PK Ripper I want. I didn't need three of them. So I would sell two of those PK Rippers, sold all the Race Inc. bikes. I sold almost all the retro bikes and kept a lot of the old school bikes. And that's kind of the direction I'm moving now. I was doing a lot of flips on retro bikes and customizing retro bikes like the Race Inc. bikes and some other things that come and gone. But now my collection is 98% old school bikes. I only have 3 retro bikes in the entire collection right now. Just sold my Haro. It's sitting right in front of me in a box going out tomorrow. So the 2019 Haro Team Master Bash Guard bike is gone. And I've had it for years. I bought it basically brand new. And I bought it just to promote the company because I built it in the pink and blue colors, which is what my colors are. But man, I've sat on it for so long, I thought it just needs to go. And it'll bring me some money to buy something else that's cool. People are tired of seeing it. It's been around for years, and let's bring them something new. So that was kind of the idea of selling off all those bikes. Time to bring people something new.
At this moment, I'm going to interrupt our current interview, briefly to give a special shout out and thank you to our sponsors that have backed us financially in this project, in our mission, and give them a huge thank you. So at our gold level, we have Luminex Neon and Marketing Breakthrough. At our silver level, we have Sound Cedar Lumber and Bicycle Thieves. And at our bronze level, we have Pro Start Gates and Justin Shepard, Title Examiner. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for backing us. If you are looking for help with any project that you're working on, if you're looking for some cool things to do, go ahead and check out the links to their websites in our description and go ahead and visit them, show them some love. We are so appreciative for their support. And if you are interested in getting involved in a local track, helping out, or sponsoring a local track, sponsoring the BMX Breakthrough project as a whole, please reach out at j@bmxbreakthrough.com. You can also go to our website and find out some of the needs of tracks and some of the things that we are working on at bmxbreakthrough.com. Once again, thank you so much for your support. Let's dive back into this conversation.
I'd shown just about all of them already. I've done YouTubes on all of them already, and it's just time for a big refresh. So I created a video like Bike Builder selling entire collection or whatever the selling collection. I didn't say entire collection. You gotta be real careful with titles. You want to clickbait them to get the views, right? Like, I'm selling a collection, not every single bike, which people just lead to believe that. And they're like, oh my God, why would he sell his whole collection? And they watch the video. Then the comment section blows up like, you lied. You're not selling your whole collection. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. I'm sorry you felt that way, but go back and read the title very carefully. And the same thing happened just recently with the Christian Hollings bike. I had the red and chrome 85 Mongoose California and Christian Hollings bike from the movie Rad. for whatever reason, when they read the title, they thought it was her bike from the movie. It's the exact same bike, but they made many, many, many of those bikes. She rode a stock bike in that movie, and this was the exact same stock bike that she rode in that movie, not the bike she rode. So a lot of people blew up the comments, but hey, that's interaction. The
It's true.
algorithm loves that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you know anything about social media, good, bad, or indifferent, a comment helps, you know? So say whatever you want to say. It helps me. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. If you read it that way, that's on you, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry for the misunderstanding on your
Yeah.
part.
Also, who cares? What's the difference to the person making the comment? Like, I didn't sell it to you. What do you care? You know? It's a
Exactly.
bike.
Yeah. Yeah. Why does
Yeah.
it matter? I mean, people get, really all worked up about stuff like that. And, it's kind of, I say like on the fanboy side of things, like, they get really involved and it's like, it just doesn't matter. It just,
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, but
I have people straight lose their cool, and I'm like, you're a middle-aged guy getting mad about a BMX bike that's not yours. Like, it's you. You're the problem. It's okay, buddy. Like, just
yeah,
scroll on or stop following or go have a drink. Like, whatever you need to do. It's just a kid's bike, essentially. A 40-year-old
exactly.
kid's bike. There's no reason to get upset about them. I
Yeah,
don't.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so what has been on that note? So you have built a following on YouTube, and like you said, it's not like you can carry over all your followers from Instagram to YouTube. But
Yeah.
what have been some of the interesting things about having a BMX YouTube channel?
Man, there's good and there's bad. So it is a grind, a struggle, and don't think you're going to be YouTube rich if you start a channel. You have to even meet a certain minimum before they'll even monetize you. So you're doing it for free for quite a while until you hit their thresholds. And then once they start paying you AdSense, it's cents. It's not dollars. It's not ad dollars. It's not much at all. It's not the way to make money. The way to make money on YouTube is to have other people realize you have a YouTube channel and pay you to do a video versus the ads they're going to run and the money that YouTube pays you. YouTube pays you less than 1% of what they make on their ads. It's terrible. So just for you future YouTubers out there, you'll have to leverage your channel in other ways to make money on YouTube. So a lot of these big channels you'll see that they have a sponsor, they'll talk about a toothbrush brand or whatever. They get paid to do that, and that's really where they're making the big money. So the pros of having a YouTube channel are the doors that open up for you. I could sit down with Eddie Fiola, have a conversation, become friends with Craig Turner. He comes, stays at my house, hang out. I call him on the phone. The contacts that I've gotten having a YouTube channel, the friendships that I've established over the years of having a YouTube channel have just been amazing. They go from like, you were a kid seeing these guys in magazines or in a movie and going, oh my gosh, now the guy's at your house, hanging out, you're having dinner together, talking about bikes. Like, it's really wild. And I kind of equate it to, and if any of them are watching this, I don't want to upset them in this way, but these guys were so popular and had such a spotlight for so long. And then BMX kind of died for a while, and that spotlight kind of went away. And to give them a platform again to be back in that limelight behind a camera talking about these things is exciting. And I'm giving them that forum to bring that back, and they're more than welcoming to say, let's do a sit down, let's do a bike review, let's hang out, let's talk bikes. Like, they feel about it the same way we do. They're not any different than you or I. They're just a normal middle-aged dude that used to ride bikes, but they rode them really well. And so they love to talk about it, and I give them that forum to do it, and it's made great friendships.
That's cool.
The downside of YouTube, oh my gosh, the time and effort put into it for the return on your investment, your ROI, is the worst business model I've ever done in my life. So many times I've wanted to quit YouTube because it's just not worth the time and effort. I've gotten really good at editing. I've gotten really good at content and making the video and creating the storyline and all of that. And I can kick out a video in 6 to 8 hours worth of production and edit and upload, which is fast. But But your return on that, if you don't have a sponsor or someone paying you and you're just getting AdSense from it, maybe you'll make 80 bucks on that video. So is your time worth 80 bucks to spend 8-hour day to get paid 80 bucks? Probably not. Probably not. You're probably worth more than that. You know, some people make 80 bucks an hour. I mean, it seems pretty stupid to spend 8 hours doing something that you hope to get 80 bucks back in. But to me, it's more of a passion project. It's the enjoyment of being able to do that and documenting the builds that I'm doing. A lot of it's for me. Not really. I love the people that watch them. I love the people that comment, but I'm doing a lot of it for me because I don't know most of these people watching it. I appreciate them doing it, but for me, I want to be able to go back and see a video of a bike that I built or share that video to somebody that's like, hey, have you ever built a Robinson? Boom, there's a video, check it out. Have you ever met Eddie Fiola? Boom, here's the interview, check it out. Like, I love having that library of content that I can just share so easily. And it gets me invites to shows and to be a judge. And those are definitely some of the positives, but the downside is just the time and trying to come up with content. If you don't have an endless stream of things to talk about, you're going to run out of content really fast. And then you're putting out just dumb, low quality videos just to put out a video. And I don't want that to happen. There's been times where I've struggled to come up with stuff and I'm like, let's just do a tour of the garage. Yeah, sometimes that's important, but is that really worth a whole YouTube video? That's something you can do in like a minute, you know? But to sit down and do a review on every bike, is someone going to have the capacity to sit there and watch that? Probably not. Most people have the attention span of a gnat. So if they're not heavily entertained after 30 seconds, they're moving on to something else. So I usually do videos on, I don't break up my bike builds either. There's a lot of YouTubers and bike builders that today we're doing wheels and do a really long video about wheels. I do the entire bike from beginning to fully assembled in one video. I just think that's better for viewing. Also, I try to keep my videos 15 to 20 minutes because I don't know who's watching really long videos and not even getting the full enchilada at the end of it. That's hard if you're really trying to build an audience. And also being entertaining. That's very hard to do. I come from a military instructor background, so I'm very like disciplined when I talk, like you, this, that part, and the other. And it's not very entertaining. It's more instructional, and I try not to be. Off camera, I'm a total idiot. The things I edit out, I should probably leave in because that's entertaining, like smashing my knuckles, throwing a wrench across here, the whole bike falling over. Like that stuff I don't want to show. And I probably should because every single person that's built a bike has done that same exact thing, you know? And it would be more entertaining. I just don't want to be the idiot doing it and putting it on YouTube. But I'm here to tell you, I am the idiot editing it out of my YouTube because it happens. My whole table is collapsed. My bikes fall off things. Like, I smash knuckles. My fingers are so beat up from working on bikes every day, and it's terrible. It's really terrible. The amount of stuff I drop on this floor is insane. So I have rugs and stuff to try to prevent that from happening. And I'm not trying to ever cover up damage done to anything. If I ever did damage anything, I'm very transparent. I'd be like, yep, this bike's jacked. I'm going to have to X, Y, and Z to fix this. And I'm not ever trying to hide anything except I hide all the bloopers. I should probably just let them roll. I don't know. You let me know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting because I think sometimes people like to. It's also relatable. You know, it's like anytime I work on my vehicle,
True.
like if I'm not bleeding, I probably didn't work on my car.
Right.
And bikes are commonly the same way. It's like if you didn't work on an old bike, you know,
Yeah.
if your knuckles aren't bleeding, then you might not have actually worked on that old bike.
Yeah.
And so it is interesting as you were talking about the dynamic of YouTube being a really low ROI, and it's true. It's amazing to me the number of people that I've said, oh well, I'll just get a YouTube channel.
Good luck.
Okay, if that's your plan B, you better have a plan C and a D.
Yep. And it's also the startup cost of a YouTube channel, camera, lights, all kinds of stuff. If you're using microphones, like people don't realize all this stuff. And it's the production part of it. I can build a bike in 30 minutes. If I'm doing a YouTube video, it's hours because you got to move cameras, move lighting, move angles and bikes in your position. You're not thinking about that stuff when you're throwing together a bike. Bikes aren't hard to build, people. Filming
No.
them and talking about it while building it, that's a whole different story.
It gets exhausting. Like there are definitely builds that I've done that I have taken a video of and I've thought, no, I'll put it on the back burner. Like, I mean, for
Yeah.
example, my daughter, my dad bought her an 18-inch Mongoose Legion, and we got some cool decals to put on it, and we got some parts to build it up with, and so she's ridden the bike right out of the box, but there's some things that need to be done, but I want to make a video to go along with it, and the motivation has just been low because I think then I
Yeah.
got to get all this stuff out and I got to do all this and
Yep.
this and
And then you got to edit it.
yeah, because filming it is
Add
one thing.
music. Yeah, it's so much.
Editing it is totally separate, and then people want to throw together like, well, we can do it real quick. Okay, well, good luck. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of effort to it. So
I've seen people just set a camera up and just let it roll continuously, and that's their YouTube video. But I'm here to tell you, through my experience, you're not going to have retention. Your viewers aren't going to sit there and watch that.
yeah,
You've got to splice it up. You've got to add monkeys with cymbals, explosions, and people fast roping in with machine guns, or else their attention will just evaporate and they'll move on. Nobody wants to just sit there and watch you slowly build a bike. You've got to speed it up, cut it out. Like, you've got to do that, or you're just going to not be a successful YouTuber.
yeah,
Not
absolutely.
that I am, but but any successful YouTube channel you see is heavily edited. It's got entertaining aspects to it.
There's a lot of work to it.
A lot of work.
So you referenced going to riding at the pipeline, and you talked about racing a little bit. So, but you said at one point you got back into racing. How much time did you actually spend racing?
Okay, so when I first started racing, probably 2 to 3 years. Then I took a break until high school. I did it for 1 more year. Then I joined the military. Then around 2002, I actually got back into it while still in the military. A base I was at had a BMX track outside the gate. And I had little boys at the time. And I was like, let me get my kids into this. Well, if they're going to get into it, I'm buying them bikes. I might as well buy myself a bike. So I bought a 24-inch Diamondback Cruiser, fixed it all up. All of us had brand new bikes, and my kids were doing really well. One of them state champion, like just killing it. I realized I probably have asthma, and I'm huffing and puffing around the track. I'm dying, and I'm also in my 30s at the time. And I'm like, I'm just not what I thought I was or what I used to be on any level. And I'd fly off the top of berms. And I'm like, this is probably best that I don't race at this point. Because in my mind, I thought I was a legend. I thought I'd be doing tabletops and manuals over stuff. I'm barely getting across the finish line. And I wasn't in bad shape, but BMX racing is a sprint. It's not an endurance. And this body's not built for sprints anymore. Maybe when I was 14, 15, but not anymore. So I kind of put that bike in the corner of the garage, tried to keep my kids focused on it. One of them continued to do it, one of them didn't, and then shortly thereafter, it just died off for both of them, and that was it. So that's when I hung up the helmet, and that was probably in my mid-30s, the last time I raced anything. I still think about it, still thought about doing it. I absolutely have some bikes worthy of it, but I mean, now I'm almost 53 years old, and there's not a track anywhere near where I'm at. So how much effort do I really want to put into that? I think I'll just casually ride around, go to some ride outs, some bike shows. That's probably more my speed. And I really get a lot of enjoyment out of finding a frame and fork set and creating a bike again, and then selling it to someone that can enjoy it. That brings me more happiness than scabs on my knees that used to bring me the happiness. And now, when you get beat up at this age, that lingers for a lot longer than when you're 14, 15.
That's fair.
Yeah.
do you consider riding when you go out to Dirty Fest and events like that?
So when I went to Dirty Fest, it was the first year. Oh no, not Dirty Fest. When I went to Frogtown the first year, I was going to race my Race Inc. bike, and I was dead set on it. And right before that, so I've had multiple knee surgeries, ankle surgeries from military stuff, but right before that, I was having some knee issues, and I was like, I probably shouldn't. So I went there and I filmed it, and made a video of all that. Then Dirty Fest, I was like, there's no way. I'm just not. And then when I went, I saw the track, I was like, why didn't I? So tons of regret, right? I should have just done it for fun. There's some old farts like me out there just basically using gravity to get them down the track. Who cares if you win? Just go out there and have fun. And I thought, even for content, bolting some GoPros on the bike, it'd be better to be behind all the chaos. Let them smash into each other, get it on video. Maybe you'll even pass them while they're laying in the dirt and get some really rad content. So a lot of regret that I didn't at Dirty Fest. But the next Dirty Fest, I will be there. Will I bring a bike? We'll have to wait and see.
Quick detour to one of our gold level sponsors, Luminex Neon, who has partnered with us to help accomplish the mission here at BMX Breakthrough. We're so grateful for their opportunity. And there's a special place, a near and dear place in my heart for neon, all things neon, whether that's on paper, whether it's shoes, whether it is a sign in a living room or a garage space, it doesn't matter. I love neon, always have, probably always will. And so neon signs create a unique statement piece. So if you're looking for that for your bike shop, for your garage, for your workspace, maybe it's for your living room, Luminex Neon offers exactly what you need. So with unparalleled craftsmanship and endless design possibilities, Luminex Neon is your go-to for brightening up any space. You can follow the link in the description and use our promo code BMX Breakthrough 10 in order to get 10% off of your order and to explore everything that Luminex Neon has to offer.
Last year, I went to the BMX Hall of Fame, and I was there with Damian Fulton. They had a Radical Rick display set up, and Haro and Damian Fulton asked me to build a Radical Rick bike using the Haro Radical Rick bike. I wasn't a fan of how they did it, and so Damian said, I'd like you to do it full creative, whatever you want to do. And I said, all right, let me just go crazy on this. I took a 24-inch Haro Radical Rick bike, stripped it down to absolutely nothing. Only thing I kept was the frame, forks, and hubs. Everything else, tossed it. Redid a powder coat, had decals made for it, all custom parts, built the bike, drove it from Arizona to Tulsa. I saw the display they set up for the first time. I'd never seen it prior to that. And the bike was an exact match for the display if you've ever seen it. It went so perfect, I couldn't believe it. And it's been there for a year now in the BMX Hall of Fame Museum. And this year they said, hey, we're going to be taking it down just prior to the induction ceremony. Are you coming? I wasn't planning on it. I've been trying to get that display. It's so rad. And so I've been talking to Gork over there. I was like, hey, what's it going to take for me to get that display? He's like, cost us like $2,000. Okay, what's it going to take for me to get that display? He reached out to me and said, hey, if you're coming to the event to get your bike, I'll give you the display. No problem. So I bought a one-way plane ticket to Tulsa, got a minivan rental car to bring back my bike and the display. So it's all coming back here to Texas, and I'll have it set up here in the shop late September after the event.
That's awesome.
So, pretty cool.
Sweet. Well, yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll be there for sure that weekend. So, it'll be cool to get to see you and get to hang out for a bit. But, man, that's awesome.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, I put so much time and effort into that bike, and then when I saw the display, I was like, it's such a. They go together. It's like a puzzle. It's just so perfect. I had to have it, and I thought, what a great. Because I mean, I have a mannequin sitting over here in the corner. Actually, you can see him right there. So I made a Radical Rick exact replica helmet and shirt, and Damian's painting Rick on the shirt. And so when I get that display back here, I'm going to dress up the mannequin with the Radical Rick helmet, the Radical Rick shirt. He'll have the Radical Rick bike. He'll have the display behind him. Damian's a great friend of mine. I have a whole, I mean, I buy just about everything he does, this Radical Rick. And I don't know why it became such an obsession, but I love supporting my friends. So every time he had something up for sale, I'd try to buy it. So I've amassed quite a lot of stuff. It'll be a pretty crazy display once it's all put together.
That's cool. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I saw the bike. Let's see, I can't remember when the last time I was in Hall of Fame, but I remember seeing the bike. I just didn't know that it was one of your builds. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool bike. Like, it's not typically something I would build. It's a brand new 24-inch Haro with disc brakes. Like, it's not my thing. I like the older school, the side pull brakes. That's just what I grew up with. It's what I prefer. I've only done a handful of disc brake bikes, but I was like, how do I make this custom? Like, I got to keep these hubs because they're disc brake hubs. So I did keep the hubs, but I put brand new spokes, chrome hoops, different tires. I just had to keep only what I needed to keep. Everything else went out the window. I wanted it to be a full custom build. And I put a lot of time and money into that bike, and then it just went away. It's been gone for a year. Half the time I forget I even own that bike. And then I'll randomly see a photo and go, oh yeah, that's my bike too,
That's
It's
cool.
been there forever. Yeah. So we've talked about putting some of my other bikes on display there, but logistically, it's not easy to get a bike to and from, for me to get to Tulsa and then to
Yeah.
bring it back. It's just not great unless I want to box it up and ship it. And that's a risk. It's a risk to a bike every time you ship it. So I don't know about that.
Every time. I completely get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool. Yeah, it's fun to see how your childhood has influenced, what you're doing now. And obviously, you've built up some bikes. You've had a ton of fun with this. You've seen some success of turning it into a business and building some recognition on social media platforms, even if it's not quite what you would hope, but still
Yeah.
super exciting that way, and being able to have a good time with it and be able to make a living off of it is super cool. So yeah, it's fun. And then to see, you showing up at the different events like Frogtown and Dirty Fest, and having your influence there, and being able to bring the bikes that you've built to those kinds of places too, and for other people to get to
Yeah.
see and experience is pretty awesome.
One of my favorite things is going to these events and meeting a lot of people and just talking bikes, like we are. And that's really the grassroots of it all. So like I've gone to Pork Chop had an event, and I went out there and I met a bunch of people that are out in the Georgia area. I even met Tommy Brackens. And just going to these things, the people you get to meet, what's really crazy, and I'm so humbled by this. Like I went to Frogtown, and this guy came up and said, "Hey, you're the guy from Rad BMX Builds." I'm like, "Yeah, man, good to meet you." And he goes, "Hey," pulled up his sweater and he had a Rad BMX Builds shirt on, and I was like, "Get out of here!" Like going to these places and seeing people wearing your merch is really cool. And I got a crazy story that I got to share because this just happened not too long ago. I went to a show in Austin. A really good military friend of mine lives really close to where the show was, so I was going to stay the weekend with him. I got there. I'm not wearing any merch whatsoever, just random street clothes. And he goes, "I know this really small hole in the wall barbecue place. Let's go have dinner." Eating dinner, and this guy just keeps staring at me. And he looks, I'm going to be a little rude, drugged out, drunk, just a mess of a guy. It's like, why does that guy keep staring at us? Like, it's getting almost to the point where it's annoying. We go to walk out, and he follows us with his head, gets up, and starts to follow us out to the parking lot. I tap my buddy like, "Hey, it might be going down, so we're ready for it." And he goes, "Are you the guy from Rad BMX Builds?" And I was like, so just some random guy in a random barbecue place, had no idea about the bike show, spotted me out in the wild without wearing any of my stuff. And we get in my friend's truck, and he goes, "Does that happen to you a lot?" I go, "That's never happened." Because that's really crazy. And I go, "You followed me from," he said YouTube. That's only 10,000 people in the entire world that are subscribed to that. That's really crazy. Just meet that dude in a little strip mall barbecue place. So pretty crazy out there, I'll tell you.
That's
I
wild.
appreciate it.
That's
Yeah,
pretty cool
small
though.
world.
Yeah, it's always fun to get to meet people like that and to hear about those interactions. And um I mean, you never know with BMXers, right? I mean, clearly,
Yeah.
this guy, he surprised you.
Yeah, I wish I had something to give him, like a hat or something, but I literally was just going to dinner. It caught me so off guard, but it really humbled me after that. Like I thought this was going to be some sort of robbery slash beatdown that we were going to have to do, but it turned out just to be a fan that wanted to say hi, and I felt so bad. I shook his hand like 3 times. I felt so bad because he didn't know what I was thinking. He
Yeah.
just thought I walked out to the parking lot and he said hi. He didn't realize that the backgrounds my friend and I come from, that what we were already ready to do to defend ourselves. But
Yeah.
we got in the truck, we kind of laughed like, if he only knew what was going through our mind versus what was going through his mind. And it was just crazy. I felt terrible after that, but I thought That's so humbling that someone would just come up and say like, "Hey, I watch your stuff. I love it. Thanks for doing that." And that makes you want to do the videos. Meeting people like that like them enough to recognize you out in the wild like that and say hi to you makes the videos worth it on that level. Maybe not monetarily, but worth it on that level, and the reward because you're doing something other people appreciate, maybe something they learn something from. I don't do a lot of how-to stuff, but if people ask me, I'm more than willing to give them my knowledge, whatever that's good for, of how I do something. And just that he thought what I was doing was cool, I thought it was pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's really cool what you've done. I mean, I said that a little bit, but I think it's so important to know the heritage. I mean, we talk about world history, right? Is how important that is. And I think when you're in the sport of BMX, I think there's so much value to kids knowing where the sport originated and what the bikes looked like. And I mean, I hopped on my Redline MX2 to race at Dirty Fest and
Nice.
realized the evolution of the BMX bike and how far that has come. And it makes me appreciate modern geometry so much more.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, whether it's on that level or just kids being able to look at the way that bikes used to be and admire the way that bikes were built and the designs that they had and the intricacies and the fact that they weren't all mass manufactured. And now Sean's got a bunch in his collection. So when he's at a race or a show that we can go to, we can go and look at what he's got. I just think there's so much value to that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I like about these era bikes is they all have style and uniqueness to them. Where a lot of the new school bikes, they look exactly the same except for the color or decal on the bike. But to me, aesthetically, they all look extremely similar. But they finally efficiently realized the correct geometry to do that thing versus a company back then where it's all groundbreaking. It's all uncharted territory, but they want to stand out. So like we're putting bends in frames where you probably shouldn't because structurally it wouldn't make sense, but it looks cool. And we're doing all these crazy wild 80s and 90s colors, and the bikes back then were extremely unique. And like I said earlier, it was kind of an expression of who you are, your individuality, versus now they're all, you lay them all in the pile, I wouldn't know whose bike's whose. And, but I still appreciate them because they took what I'm into and created what, based off that, what that was into what it is now. The top tubes back then, I mean, 18 inches on a top tube, some of these bikes are tiny, like a Diamondback or a Mongoose. Now I'm a bigger man than I was when I was a young boy, but at the same time, they're itty bitty and fragile. You get dropouts that are really thin versus dropouts now that are really thick. 3/8 axles versus 20 mil. Like it's just so many, the evolution's huge. Not my thing, but I can see how nowadays bikes are so much stronger than they were back then. And you had some dude that had a long lunch hour with a few beers that are welded up your frame back then. Who knows what you're getting? Where now it's all, done by a robot, done by a machine, and QC'd and packaged and gone. But back then it's just a bunch of welders sitting around eating their bologna sandwich, drinking a Coors, welding your bike. That's what I have in this collection. They're all a little bit different, and when you work on them, sometimes an American bottom bracket cup goes in, sometimes it doesn't. You try a different one and it does. They're not all identical. So that's part of the fun of it though, and that's, even though it's frustrating, I have to remind myself that's what's unique about these bikes is that they're all truly unique from each other, and that's what makes it interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would get behind that 100% is that the uniqueness of the bikes that is something that you just don't have anymore. Um, to on the larger scale, obviously there are still manufacturers that are independent. S&M still makes bikes in the
Yep,
US and you still have quite a few, or you still have a few manufacturers that are building bikes by hand. And
that's
that's
right.
really cool. So
Yeah, Craig Turner is still welding these bikes himself in the old GT facility. And those are
yeah.
hand built right here. I've watched him. I've sat with him, watch him take rock chromoly, cut it, bend it, weld it, sand it, grind it, like whatever, send it to powder coat to this using the same colors GT had back then. So it's still happening if you want to find those builders and buy their products, or you can just buy a mass-produced bike. I really don't care if it brings you happiness and that's what you want. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I mean, the people that do what I do, there's two types. People like me that build custom bikes and purists that want to build a bike that's identical to the way it was in the catalog. But to me, newsflash, none of us rode bikes like that. We got that catalog bike and immediately customized it by putting different pedals and whatever you want on it, cranks or whatever. So I don't build catalog bikes. I'm not a purist. I should get shirts that say the anti-purist because I don't build them that way. I build them how I want to build them. I don't build them for my viewer to be happy, to be perfectly blunt about it. I build what makes me happy. And then when I'm done with that bike or I don't want it anymore, I'll put it on my website and then sell it. And I have never had a problem selling a bike. So it must work, you know, it must be an okay business model. And while we're on that subject, if you don't mind, I get a lot of requests for me to build bikes for people. I don't do that. I will build bikes for companies and do promotional builds and things like that, but if Joe Smith reached out to me and said, hey, I have a blah, blah bike, will you restore it? I don't do that. I have so many bikes of my own to work on, and people are quite picky, you know, and people change their mind. And building bikes for other people that have a vision is a very complicated, frustrating process that I get no enjoyment out of. And so I want to enjoy what I'm doing. So I build what I want, how I want, when I want, sell it if I want. That's kind of what I do, and it works. So I'm just going to keep doing that. So if you wanted me to build a bike for you, it's not that you can't have one. You just have to have one that I built and sold. I won't build yours. I just got to make it clear because I would say 5 times a day I get that DM. Will you build this bike for me? Will you find this bike for me? Man, I'm busy enough doing my own thing, other searching for bikes for other people.
Yeah,
I can't go on the hunt for you to find a bike for you. That's something you got to do, and you'll appreciate it more when you find it.
absolutely. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
thanks for letting me
definitely.
vent and get that out there.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, I think that's great. And again, I do appreciate what you've done. And I think that it's really cool to see the ways that you've created your collection, that you've curated this collection, and you've made something that people can look at and oogle over and go back to and admire and reminisce through, because ultimately it's the stories that we remember. And like you said, there may be something, or the way that you restore bikes is, it may have been your friend's frame and fork, but you built it up the way that you either wanted it to be or the way that you remember it being, not necessarily
Yeah.
the way that it was. And I have a couple of those too. I've got a couple of 99 GT Speed Series that they were
Nice.
owned and raced by my childhood hero and mentor growing up. And he got rid of them. I was fortunate enough to get them from him. He had an identical 20 and 24 and built them up with Answer Carbo Pro forks. And they were just beautiful bikes, both with GT piston stems and Cell Italia saddles and Redline Flight cranks. The only thing that he doesn't have on that, well, that I don't have, is that he raced with Shimano DX pedals, and
Yep.
only one of them had a set, and I don't have another set. So I put on some bear traps, some Well-Go bear traps that I like a little bit more. And so that's what I'll use if I ride the bikes. And then he built it. He had them with some spin wheels on the 20-inch, and
Okay.
always admired when he was racing. One of them ended up getting broken. I guess it was his fiance that ended up crashing. He had put him on her bike. One of them got broken. And anyway, so I found some. They're not the exact same ones, but they're still spin wheels. And so the bike is fixed up in the way that I mostly remember it being. And like you said, to your point, that's the important part. That's how we want
Yeah,
it to be.
right.
So
Well, I really appreciate that. You said a lot of nice things there. And it's nice to be recognized by other guys that are in this industry that have an appreciation for BMX bikes, because I'm not out there just trying to ruffle feathers by building bikes. I still want people to appreciate the bikes that I build. And 99.9% of the people that leave comments all are very positive. And I have some diehard followers that have just been very supportive throughout the years. And honestly, those things keep me going. There are people just jump on there to be trolls, and I just block them. It's no big deal. I mean, I'm thick-skinned and foul-mouthed. I don't have any issues with someone saying something stupid. It's social media. You just block them and move on. But I used to get involved in the comments, and I've been throttling back on that because sometimes I have no filter, and then they report me, and then that hurts me, and it hurts your growth. It hurts you monetarily. So I've had to really bite my tongue as the page progresses, and it is a business. So I don't get involved in the comments as much as I used to for a lot of that reason. There's some content creators out there that don't even read comments. I do read every single comment. I try to like every single comment if they deserve to be liked. If not, they get deleted. But I appreciate the recognition. I appreciate, you understanding why I do what I do and the motivation behind that, because it's a labor of love. I find a lot of enjoyment in doing it. Post-military career, it keeps my mind busy, keeps me busy. It's essentially a hobby that pays for itself, that's profitable. And there'll be times where I come out here just for my own mental health to come stare at bikes, play 80s music. And there are times I've done a whole bike build, no lighting, no cameras, no audio, just loud music, me building a bike. And all of a sudden the bike appears on Instagram. People are like, is there a video coming out of that bike? No, that was just me. I just spent an afternoon putting a bike together. I probably should have videoed it, but sometimes I don't want to video everything I do. And sometimes bikes get built in the background that I don't even talk about, So there are times where I just build a bike and they never know I even built it. So I've built some bikes for some celebrities that I don't talk about, and they just went off to them, never showed them, never took photos of them, but it was a fun build and they're happy with it. I live in a town. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and that's okay. We don't have to know everything that you do. You can have some moments where you just go out and take a mental health day and go listen to music and build a bike.
That's exactly what it is too, and it's really wild. I live in this small little town in Texas, and this town it's probably around 20,000 people now. But there are probably no less than 20 very large YouTuber accounts that live here. And it's just inundated with these YouTubers. So it's really crazy that you can go into town and see a guy that's got 25 million subscribers on YouTube. There's a guy that lives around the corner that's one of the owners of Black Rifle Coffee, and it's owned by 3 guys. They're all veterans. 2 of them live right here in this town. The 3rd lives in Salt Lake City. And like, I was over at this guy's house. Am I going to film that? Absolutely not. Am I going to post photos of me and him? Absolutely not. It's just having those relationships where you meet these people. You don't want to be a weird fanboy. Like, you're just trying to establish those connections, hoping later it expands your growth. And I'm not trying to get him to like, hey, this is this guy that builds bikes. But at the same time, he might introduce me to this guy, might introduce me to that guy, just trying to network and open the doors. So there's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on around here that I'm just not carrying a camera. I don't vlog. I don't like walk around with it all day, every day, showing my life. My life's pretty private. What you see behind me is all I ever really show. I don't really show anything else, and that's by design. There's a lot more to me than bikes, but I spend a lot of time with these bikes. But there's a whole other side of me that does a whole lot of other stuff that's pretty wild and crazy that's just not my audience, so I don't make videos of it.
No,
I'm
that's
sure that's
fair.
the way most people are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
no, I get it.
I spent a long time, a whole career doing other things that I'm still very much involved with, that people just probably on this channel, on my YouTube channel or my Instagram, wouldn't care at all. They'd be like, that's something about social media. If you have a bike page, only post bike stuff. If you have a bike page and you're showing your shoes and I don't know, all kinds of random things like cars and trees and your dog and a lake and then a bike, you're going to not really grow as a bike page. So social media, really, the algorithm, the way it works, is really going to have you focus on a niche and just go all in on it. And I call it feeding the baby on social media. If you don't feed the baby dies. So you constantly have to give it content, food, if you will, or that baby will die. So people are like, you post a lot. There's a reason why I have a bigger following, because I post a lot. So Instagram will show my stuff to people, and then sometimes those people follow the page. That's the way it is, you know?
Sean, I appreciate the time, your conversation. I appreciate your investment into the sport and the history, the preservation of the sport, and what you've done for some of the bikes, and being able to share those around with other people who love the community as well. So I appreciate your time and being willing to have a conversation with me.
Well, thanks for having a platform where people like me can just go on there and talk about it so other people hear kind of why we do it and what we do. And there's several of us that I, reach out to and talk to on a regular basis that do the same thing I do. And their account might be real small, it might be real big or somewhere in the middle, but it's all the same type of guys doing the same thing for the same reason. And we just enjoy doing it. Some of us get lucky, some of us don't care to get lucky. It's just the way it is. But if you don't mind, if I can just plug something real quick, there's
Absolutely.
a lot of really good companies out there. They're doing a lot of really good things like Amy Grips and Flight Pads. And I have a website. I don't sell anything on social media. So if you see a bike of mine out there for sale, it's not me selling it. I only sell bikes on my website. I will never sell through a social media platform. It's just too many scammers out there nowadays. So I would tell anyone looking to buy a bike, just be very cautious. If you're going to send someone potentially thousands of dollars that you've never met, have them do a live video with the bike that you want to buy, because people steal photos all the time of bikes that aren't theirs. They steal my photos and steal my videos and say, hey, I have this bike and it's $1,000 when it's a $2,000 bike that I don't even have listed for sale. So be real careful out there. If you ever want to buy a bike from me, it's on my website at radbmxbuilds.com. Shirts, hats, whatever you want. I would appreciate it if they would subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me on Instagram. Thanks so much. I appreciate all you guys' support, and man, thanks for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure doing these things, and I appreciate the offer.
Absolutely. Yeah, glad to have you. And yeah, thanks for your time. We'll definitely connect in the near future. We'll at
See you in
least we'll
Tulsa.
see you in Tulsa. And I don't know, I think
Absolutely.
this episode will actually come out slightly after Tulsa. But that's the next time we'll see you.
Sounds good, Jay. Thanks again.
Right on. Have a good day, Sean. We'll talk later.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode. It is because of people like you and our sponsors who make this whole thing possible, because they have a desire to see the sport grow. If you would like to get involved in the mission of BMX Breakthrough, you can start by going to your local track, find a way to volunteer, help out, and serve there. Or you can go to our website, bmxbreakthrough.com, in order to donate, find out about sponsorship, or learn more.